Okay, thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoyed the lunch for those of you who are here in Paris, and for those of you who are online, I hope you enjoyed whatever it was that you were able to get for your break here as well. Now, UIC being an international organization, it's important to give our regions the opportunity to share with everyone the challenges that each have. And so for this, as we move into the next part of our event, we will focus in on each of them. The order of appearance, by the way, in the program is nothing to do with hierarchy, but much more to do with the time of day. So we will start, however, with Europe. Unfortunately, as I said just before the lunch break, we had invited Chris Irwin from the European Passenger Federation to moderate this session. So you're going to have to put up with me now doing it. Keir Fitch from the European Commission is here in the building, but isn't quite got back yet from his lunch or from his other meeting. He's got another meeting, unfortunately, which he's trying to do. And we're going to try and crack through. And move things around a little bit. So I'm very much hoping that online we can welcome, Keir will join us when he can, but we're able to welcome Daniela Gerd von Tom Markotten, who is from Deutsche Bahn AG, the board member for Digitalization. Also Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, who is an MEP for the Greens. Gilkinet, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Mobility, has prepared a video, and we will be listening to that. Alberto Mazzola, who is the Executive Director of the Community of European Railway and Infrastructure Companies, will be also joining us online, and as will Yuwei, who is the Director of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. And right on cue, Mr. Fitch, welcome back, and do take a seat. As we move into the next session, about what is the paradigm for 2030? He has sat down, which was a bit dangerous because he's going to have to get back up again now. But Keir is going to kick us off with his retrospective on the paradigm for 2030. Keir, the floor is yours. And there is a little zapper.
So many thanks. The wonders of the online world are that you can try and do two things at once, but I think the takeaway from it is it's not a good idea. Anyway, it's great to be with you celebrating your 100th anniversary. Of course, some of what I'm going to say, does this work? Yeah. Some of what I'm going to say, I think, will reinforce what was said already by Walter Goetz this morning in particular. But there is, of course, a huge amount that we are doing at the level of the Union to deliver the great challenges that we have before us. And, of course, the key challenge, that the paradigm shift, is to deliver the net zero economy by 2050, which in transport, because it's so hard to decarbonise, has been translated into a 90% reduction by that same date. But of course, very importantly, the Commission earlier this year noted that, of course, waiting to 2050 and just trying to say we'll deliver a 90-100% reduction in 30 years' time is not credible. We need to have a clear pathway to ensure we're getting all the way to 100% much more quickly. And that is why we produced the Fit for 55 package, which I'm not sure the name is necessarily something that everybody understands, but what it's actually showing is how we get to a 55% emission reduction by the end of this decade, by 2030. And of course, we all know in transport terms, 10 years' time is nothing. Infrastructure investments take, unfortunately, much more than 10 years to plan and deliver in many cases, and even the vehicles and so on that we're buying, we really have to plan very well in advance. But nonetheless, we have the absolutely vital targets for the 55% reduction in 2030 to achieve. But importantly, and you heard this also from Valsa this morning, of course, the objective of the Union is not to stop people travelling or to stop goods travelling. The European Union is built on free movement of people and of goods, and of bringing the people of Europe together so that we work better together, we understand each other better. So stopping travelling is absolutely not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create conditions in which our economies can continue to thrive, in which that vital interaction between people can continue, but to do it in a way which is, of course, compatible with the needs of the planet. So where does rail come into this? Well, I mean, again, you heard much of this from Valsa, but we have a very ambitious target to double high-speed rail by the end of this decade, triple it by 2050. And again, of course, you realise that that raises the question, well, where actually are these high-speed journeys going to go? Some of the key high-speed lines around Western Europe, particularly those out of Paris, are already taking a very high modal share on those routes. So we need to find a way to expand the reach of those networks, but to do so cost efficiently, because building high speed is very expensive and of course not easy to justify where there are not high population densities. Rail freight, again, you've looked at some of this morning, and the thing I was trying to do alongside this was with the combined transport operators. And we have, again, ambitious targets to increase by 50% by the end of this decade, double by 2050. But that target is more difficult than it looks, because, of course, historically, rail freight has been great at carrying heavy goods, chemicals, steel, but above all, coal. And the one thing we certainly don't want to be carrying in 2050 is coal. So actually, I think our analysis shows that to get to a doubling of freight means that things like combined transport have to triple. So we've really got to find ways of making sure that rail is absolutely at the heart of that mobility chain, and that absolutely we can deliver the good first and last mile connections, both for freight and passenger. Otherwise, it simply won't happen. And again, of course, the objective of competing on a level playing field, particularly with road transport, for internalisation of external costs. Again, a no-brainer, but anybody who's followed the history of this, and I think most of you have followed the history of this, will realise that while the transport economists may say it's a no-brainer, politically delivering internalisation of external costs is extremely hard. So I don't think you can look at it as the get-out-of-jail-free card. It's something that we continue to try and make progress on, but that it's not going to be the panacea. Rail has to take the share that we believe it ought to take by being efficient, by being flexible, by being attractive, so overcoming some of the historic baggage that we have. And that takes us to the Connecting Europe Express, this train that I think, again, many of you probably joined us at different parts of its journey, but for those of you who didn't, perhaps particularly those of you listening online, to mark European Year of Rail, to understand the potential of rail, but also to perhaps learn where we still have big issues with it. We developed a train which traversed 26,000 kilometres across the continent, visiting, I think, all of the continental member states, not some of the islands, but all of the continental member states and some of the other key countries around Europe. And it taught us quite a lot about the fact that 20 years into building the single European railway area, actually we still have a great patchwork across Europe with still very many national technical barriers, national operational barriers, all of which make running a train seamlessly across Europe in the way that we are going to have to if we are to really take advantage of rail for more long-distance freight and more long-distance passenger traffic. All of those barriers, we've still got to have a renewed effort to abolish them, and that will be a key part of the Commission's work programme over the next few years, finding those remaining national rules, eliminating them, trying to move Europe's railways much more to common operational practices, which then, of course, allow us to do the digitalisation step, the other great thing that is coming down the line to transform rail. If we have common operational practices, then we can transform those in a common digital fashion. If we don't, we end up building digital platforms which we tweak for each railway, and which become very expensive, very complex, and don't work as they ought to. So a lot of lessons from the CEE, but it was good fun, and it did show the potential of rail. What are we doing in the very short term then? Because particularly getting to that 2030 target, we've got to move fast. Well, we are moving fast. We're revising the 10T guidelines, the specifications for the railways across Europe, in particular to try and ensure that even the conventional routes are capable of higher speeds, so line speeds of 160 km per hour wherever possible, including the intermodal gauge, the P400 gauge, which ensures that not only trains, but trains carrying trucks, containers, can travel much more easily across Europe. A lot of work also on capacity and traffic management in the short term with the so-called TTR project, and in the longer term, importantly, also through the new rail joint undertaking, Europe's Rail, which, as you heard from Carlo, finally got its green light with the publication of the Act this morning. But there will be a lot of work there, which we really need to bring all of the railways with us, trying to create the basis for a single European traffic management system, not a single computer, but at least a system that really works together. In 2 weeks' time, again, as you heard from Walter, we will be producing our action plan for cross-border passenger services. It will deal with some of these issues. It will particularly look again at issues surrounding ticketing, about issues surrounding the planning of journeys long distance, and of course at challenging many of these operational issues. So that will be the framework that sets out much of what we're looking to do. And then going to the slightly longer term, though some of it not very much longer term, the digital railway, as we've said, is absolutely key to delivering the efficient, flexible railway of the future. A lot more of the basic technical specs for that will come next year. They will include the first round of automatic train operation. They will include some elements for FRMCS, something that we're developing with our UIC colleagues. They will also, very importantly for freight, include the first round of specs for digital automated coupling. Now, digital automated coupling is the thing which has never happened in Europe, even though the rest of the world has at least had automated coupling for freight vehicles for, in the case of the United States, more than 120 years. We've never had that. That means that building a freight train is, of course, a very manually intensive, actually rather unsafe, and therefore slow and expensive process. And if freight is going to survive, we've got to move rapidly away from that. Now, the DAC will bring not just automatic coupling, but it will also allow us to overcome many of the technical issues, particularly the speed of assembling the train because of brake checks, also allow condition-based maintenance of the train. So that should transform rail freight, and it will also help with combined transport because it also allows us to have electricity along the train. So that the objective, very strong objective, reflected by many national governments, is that we actually start rolling that out in a pretty big bang from 2026 onwards. So a lot of work to be done in the intervening 4 years. A few other key things there. We're also looking, and the new JU will play a key role in this, at the development of hydrogen and batteries, which is vital for those lines which are non-electrifiable. It's pretty doable already for passengers, but for heavy freight, there's quite a lot of work to do. More work on ticketing, as I said, and also revising, finally, after 15 years, the Train Drivers Directive to look at how we fit that for purpose with the digital railway, how we overcome some of the many issues which still mean that train drivers are pretty limited to one member state in most cases at the moment. So a lot of work for all of us, because we need you as the sector very much to be part of this journey with us, but it's vital for delivering on those key objectives that I set out at the beginning, and for justifying the very large amount of European money that we are investing in rail. So I look forward to taking that journey with you. Many thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, Keir. We're going to, if I then may, move us very swiftly to our first of the online interventions. Daniela, Gerd, Tom Markotten, who is the board member for digitalization at Deutsche Bahn. Similar question, of course, to you is what is the new paradigm for 2030 seen from where you are in Berlin, I guess, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for your warm welcome, and hello and good afternoon from Berlin. And you're right, I'm here in the headquarters of Deutsche Bahn, and I'm really happy to be here today and introduce you to what we think is the new paradigm shift that is needed for rail. So I joined Deutsche Bahn in September this year, and I have an automotive background, so I know quite something about these two modes of transportation, and it's interesting, especially in comparing those two. And what is really important, and from my perspective, the real paradigm shift that we need is to be customer focused. Because we at Deutsche Bahn, we are talking about the strategy strong rail, meaning we want to double the amount of passengers, we want to increase the transportation of goods by 70%. And all this is only happening if customers really want to take the train, and it will not happen by itself. And so we have to really focus on what customers need, what expectations they have. So next slide, please. Because there, I would like to dive a little bit deeper. What do customers really expect from us? And it might be a little bit nasty. Is the expectation right or wrong? Or can we teach the customers what should be their expectations? But in the end, they are free to choose. And so their expectation is right. And we have to deliver and find solution that they will choose the train instead of the road. Or as you can see, when we talk about travel time, what we should really go after is not being slower than an airplane, or at least the road connection, meaning that we have to have fast track connections, or that we have to run overnight trains to really deliver on this expectation. The next one, when we talk about service level, it should be the same as a 5-star hotel. Yeah, we at Deutsche Bahn have that when you ride with the ICE, you can order right from your seat, and food and drinks are delivered. But also it should be as comfortable as you can expect. And one example, I might say so because I'm formerly from the automotive industry. So it's like autonomous driving. And the good thing, the USP for rail, is that we have autonomous driving is already there. So you don't have to wait for Elon Musk, just buy tickets and jump on it. So next one, perhaps everyone can mute their mic so that people can hear me. The next one, the work environment. People experience at the moment, unfortunately, much of home office experience, and they have wireless LAN, the Wi-Fi there, and a broadband internet. And that is when they choose the train, they can use this travel time as work time, which means one of the presuppositions is that we need a broadband internet and a good Wi-Fi connection, because then it really feels like home office on wheels, what you would never be able to experience in a car or in an airplane. And it's the same with connectivity. Uninterrupted 5G network along the tracks, that is what we need to fulfill the expectation that is there, because that is what everyone experiences in everyday life. And that should be the same experience within trains. And it also will help our employees to really get real-time information, to be more on time and get all the information that passengers also have. And last not least, emission zero. I think that is one of the big benefits that we currently as rail have. that customers consciously choose to take the train because it's environmental friendly and the most environmentally friendly mode of transportation that is currently out there. And that is something we should definitely build on, because the expectation will not stand still. As soon as the others invest more in electric driving, then we would have to do the next step, as already mentioned, and that is what we need to do. So you can ask, is this an emission impossible? Should we shy away from it? No, definitely not. And when you click, please, we have a solution, and I'm really fond and proud to be part of this rail sector now, because I think the solution is there. And when you click to the next slide, we are already on a good way, and that is what we think is the vision of Rail 2030, to be sustainable, and we are really on a good path there, but also to be smart. And as you can imagine, as I'm the board member for digitization and technology, smart is my focus, because that is what customers experience and what they expect from us. Meaning, we have to invest in Wi-Fi, what I already mentioned, broadband internet, but also use technology in the sense for the sake of our customers. For example, if we talk about being on time, use artificial intelligence to really run our trains in a more dense way and still be on time. The other thing is predictive maintenance is one of the things that we focus a lot on for the trains, as so for the infrastructure. And as you might have seen if you were a visitor of the ITS earlier this year in Hamburg, then you saw that we introduced like the first autonomous driving train in here. And that is what I think in this combination, people like it easy and modern and following the path of being as sustainable as possible. We are in a good way, and then we will really steal away customers from the road and the planes. And that is what I'm here for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And like a good railway person that you clearly have become, you were absolutely on time. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'd like to move us now to, well, I'm not sure whether she is in Brussels or whether she is going to be somewhere else more exotic, but Daniela, Gerd, Anna Deparnay-Grunenberg, who is an MEP for the Greens in Brussels normally. Again, same question, Anna. What new paradigm? How do you see it for the year 2030? The floor is yours.
Yeah, first I want to thank you for the invitation to this important event. Yes, and my agenda was pretty busy till now, so I couldn't follow all the previous panels, I have to say. But I am sure they were great regarding to all inspiring people I saw on the list, those I already know and those I would like to meet in the future. Yeah, I will start a little presentation, maybe just to introduce myself and of course to respond to this big question, or how can we make the huge potential of modal shift and desirable new paradigm for railways in 2030. So if you can share my presentation, that would be nice. Thank you very much. I can see it already now. So the first slide is just to introduce myself. That's me as a member of the European Parliament. I am now in Stuttgart in the south of Germany. I decided this week to stay at my home office regarding to the pandemic situation. And here you can see the different committees I'm in. So in the morning, I was dealing with the forest strategy and the agriculture committee. And this afternoon, we are speaking about transport, and that's so close to my heart. And of course, railways on the first stage. You see also the other committee I'm dealing with, and really important to me is the German-French relationship, and also, of course, making Europe really visible and really concrete to our citizens. Next slide, please. So the potential of modal shift, in this slide, you can see it. To protect the climate, we have already heard it. We need a strongly connected Europe, and we see in the greenhouse emissions, they come a quarter from the transport sector, and railways account for only 0.4%. Meanwhile, they transport 8% of the passengers and 80% of the freight. So, of course, we see a great potential just in these simple figures. The next slide, again, we can compare this, how ecological the rail freight and the rail for passenger is. And we need a new paradigm to prepare the way for a successful railway traffic in 2030. The next slide, please. And I would like to propose to you a really simple paradigm. If you could, yeah, the next slide. That's perfect. Thank you. So we have to think as a network instead of a patchwork. That would be the core message I want to give to you on this afternoon. A lot of time we saw a lot of lines, a lot of A to B way to transport ourselves, because that's our point of view as a human, really normal. I want to go from A to B, so I'm looking to the connection and to the speed, and maybe how affordable it is, and how fast and how practicable. But I think now, as a society, we have to begin to think really as a patchwork, as a network, sorry, instead of the patchwork. And it's really more difficult to see how we can reinforce a network. How can we reinforce the whole image of it? And it's a little bit like in our brain, when we see the rapidity of some connections, when they're not connected to the rest of the brain patterns, you will not deliver the holistic intelligence we have as human beings. So really make the steps that the whole network becomes stronger, resilient, and also faster for our passenger. In the first point, the next slide, please. I will speak about the cross-border network as one point of this paradigm shift. And we brought out a vision 2030 plus because we need alternatives. If we see that flying and taking our car is, of course, not so easy for making this ecological, we need alternatives. And we want also that people move around Europe and cross and meet themselves, inspire themselves. And so we think, a real night train network. And as I proposed this vision 2030 plus for a real night train network across Europe, we had a huge, big and beautiful response from citizens. Everybody wants this map, and everybody wanted to take the train for this journey together. But we also have to deliver a framework, a regulatory framework that will lead to a renaissance of this mode of transport, that have the potential to replace really short-haul flights in all Europe. In the year of Rail 21, I was delighted to be the rapporteur for the European Parliament. And we saw this really visible example from the Connecting Europe Express, with its 36 days and 26 countries, more than 100,000 kilometers. But we also worked on in depth and such a concept like a rail connectivity index. We want to link concrete, later invest in rail in the network speed, and so we need new indexes how to reinforce the whole network. And we want to focus on the missing links, because we see we can, with small and more rapidly, not so rapid maybe with in the digitalization, but also more rapid, we can, with a smaller amount of financial outlay, have big influence on the whole network. And if we are concentrating at the European Union more on the cross-border, we can really reinforce the network in few years. So the next point on my slide would be the technical standards. We need them, of course. We spoke a lot about the ERTMS, the system to the management and control of rail traffic, and we have to reinforce that and to link also the money of the Green Deal in this direction, because we can do a lot of big steps reinforcing the whole network with digitalization. And we need, from the European side, of course, an harmonization. We spoke a lot about that, regulation, the train drivers' languages, the security roles. We have really to deliver also on regulation, but also on hardware to make Europe more one network than those small patchworks we have today. The next point, please, on my slide. We have to think from the side, from the passengers, like we heard before. It's really important, and I'm delighted to see that the Deutsche Bahn is thinking in this way. It's really interesting to think from the passenger and from the passenger rights also. We have some new directive now. It had been updated this year. We saw some really good points, for example, by bicycle transport, that we can combine this kind of travel with your bike and the train in all Europe soon. But also we have been a little bit disappointed that we weakened the passenger rights because of the entering of the force majeure by the railway operators. That would be a little bit difficult to see the better passenger rights in this point, but we are working together on that. The fourth point I wanted to show to you is also real practicability through ticketing. We're working on that because we see this jungle of tariffs. Some train cannot even be booked online. You need a lot of different platforms, and that I think we have to become really more smart. And we need one booking platform, at least a really good exchange on information. Also, and see how I can travel more affordable and not to be a specialist on railway to book the best ticket on the best platform, and maybe to have to study to find this. So we want to be really better on that. We need, of course, a fair competition. That's a requirement compared to air traffic. We spoke on this level playing field, and so that we are working not explicit in the railway sector, but I think as a politician I have to mention that we want that the air traffic exemption from kerosene tax is soonly ended, and of course the toll obligation for rail traffic and not for road traffic in these times we have are really counterproductive, and a lot of young people just don't understand that. The whole world say be sustainable in your movement, in your mobility, but the politic is not doing the real good work to making this level playing field. So we have to deliver on this, and that would be maybe the next slide. I already said it, but you can see it now. And the last point I just will mention here. We have some good side effect also. We see in those times that more women are entering in the transport sector, and I think that so together we can think more as a network, and proportion of women in the world sector today is 22%, in road on. We say in road and in railway only 14%. So we have really to deliver on that. And I think we can do it as a whole journey for society to think our Europe and our railway system as a real network. And it would give us some benefit also in competition worldwide when the challenge of climate change are going to be a key issue for our industry and for our transport. So that would be my points. Stop thinking at patchwork at the European level, enter in the new mode of thinking as a network, giving some real good level playing field, and I'm sure that the rail sector will deliver, and we are going to help this at the political level. Thank you very much for this good exchange on this pleasant event today. Thank you very much.
Anna, thank you very much indeed for that, and I quite like the concept that you've just expanded upon, network, not patchwork, and I think that's something which I think we can all at least aspire to, if not perhaps even achieve one of these days. One of the things I'd like to we're very encouraged by was some of the messages that were coming out during the Connecting Europe Express. Certainly, and one of those was at an event which took place in Brussels, at which Georges Gilkinet, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium, but also the Minister for Mobility, spoke very positively about railways and the future of railways and how he perceives that. Not able to be with us today, however, what he has done is he's recorded a video, which we'd like to show now. And in the best way of saying these things, run VT.
Hello everybody, my name is Georges Gilkinet, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Mobility in the Belgium federal government. I want to start with a confession. I am a heavy user, even more I am addicted to travel by train. But let us get down to the serious things. What is the new transport paradigm for 2030? The answer is quite simple. It's already out there, all forms of shared mobility. In 2030, I expect that railways will be the backbone of our future transport systems. Even more, I strongly believe the train has a major role to play for the future of passenger and freight transport. The train is simply the best option to transport people and goods along medium to long distances in an energy and climate-friendly way without taking up much space. But of course, if the advantages are clear, railways won't become the solution all by itself. We'll all have got to get working to build this new future, a shared mobility with railway as backbone. One of the main challenges in our way to this new future resides in getting everybody, member states, railway operators, infrastructure managers on the same page. We all have different systems coming from historic reasons. For this more technical side, I think there is enough knowledge about what to do. The question is how to do it in an organized way. But while the technical solution may be clear, the customer side of the equation is underestimated. It's important that the customer can easily find the information about which train to take or book the train pass he needs for national or international travel. It's important that the customer can enjoy a seamless travel from origin to destination using different forms of shared transport and switching modes in convenient, organized multimodal hubs. Of course, innovation can help us there getting travel information and buying your tickets online or simply in 2 clicks via your mobile. It will increase the attractiveness and easiness of use of rail to the customer. From a European perspective, this means that we'll need to find ways to link and to share all the existing data together. Of course, there will have to be a fallback solution for people who are not digitally literate. We cannot leave anyone behind. There is a drive for a modal shift for the economy, for the climate, but also a strong demand from the users. Bob Dylan said, "The times they are changing." Where a couple of years ago the ambition of an 18-year-old was to get his or her driver license and a car, now I see a change of mind. I was invited to the departure of the train to the Glasgow Cup in Brussels. I was impressed by relative number of yaws and on the train and the positive energy they emitted. Out there, there are a lot of young people thinking along the same line, wishing they could do the right thing. In this case, use the train well and the most possible. Speaking for my own country today, it's the ambition of the Belgian federal government to reinvest in rail, make our railway system more resilient, more efficient, more attractive. It has been estimated that every euro invested in rail generates a return of almost 3 euros to society. And it's my duty to continue to look for additional resources and to raise the Belgian railway back to the top of the class again. To end my intervention, I would like to congratulate the UIC on its 100th birthday. UIC has always played an important role in promoting rail and in setting up international collaboration and exchange of best practices. There could be no better proof of the worth of this last point than the difference the quickly established UIC COVID task force made to railway companies all over the world in exchanging knowledge and solutions. Thanks for that. The UIC organization is still very well alive and kicking and is working on topics that are relevant and needed for the future and to make the paradigm shift in transport reality. Projects as new standardized communication and signaling system, the energy system, and the sustainable use of resources in the railway sector, etc. Congratulations again, and especially keep up the good work, and long life to UIC.
Thank you very much indeed for that message, and I know that his team are listening in because I got a message from them earlier this morning. So please convey our sincere thanks to Georges. And by the way, congratulations on getting the memo, because what he was wearing completely blended in and was totally color contrast or color matched with the background. So thank you very much indeed for doing that. Moving us on, if I may, many of you in Europe will already know from a number of locations and a number of things that he's done. Alberto Mazzola, who is the Executive Director of the Community of European Railway and Infrastructure Managers. Alberto, from your perspective, well, what new paradigm for 2030? And of course, welcome to our symposium.
Thank you very much, Simon. And first of all, I would like also to wish my best wishes for the 100 years of UIC next year. Best wishes to the chairman, director general, and you, Simon. I was there at the university for 90 years in Porto Ros, in Slovenia, where the UIC was founded. I'm very happy to be here also for the 100 years. I would like to go also to the first slide. This is the European Year of Rail. If you can show also the slides, please. This is the European Year of Rail in Europe, and many things happened. So as CR, Community of European Railways and Infrastructure Companies, we're being very pleased with our partners to organize the Connecting Europe Express all around Europe together with the European Commission. This has raised very high expectations all around Europe. We have seen also from the discussion that we have. And it has been an important point. I would also like to, Anna Deparnay, to highlight the point you raised on women in rail. So after 3 years of discussion, CER signed an agreement with the trade unions, how to increase the role of women in railways, how to recruit more women, how to improve their conditions and also raise their level inside the company, and how to protect where is needed their activity inside railways. And next year will be the European Year of Youth. And on that occasion, we will try also to make the connection about youth people, as we did in Strasbourg with the train, Erasmus by train, Interrail, Discovery EU, all topics that are important. So how to increase the desirability of rail? I think we need to improve and raise awareness on some of the aspects. Safety is very high. We need to improve certainly and discuss about affordability, ease of use. Here I include duration of travel, cleanliness, punctuality, connectivity, level of services, and also multimodality, because you cannot go home by train or you cannot go by the supermarket, but by a freight train. So we need to be multimodal and sustainability. I will discuss on these three topics. The next slide. I think rail sustainability credentials are without discussions. We are 9 times emitting less CO2 compared to road and compared to aviation for the unit for passenger kilometer or for ton kilometers. And we are also 7 times more energy efficient. Let me say also that we are also more, our sustainability is not just on environment, but also social sustainability. For all the people that cannot afford to have a car, or the people that doesn't want to have a car, we are there to serve everybody. So our environmental and social sustainability, let's say, are uncomparable to the rest of the other modes of transport. And we asked recently the Polytechnic of Zurich on a study about how to see 2050. If the road would be fully electrified, what will be the difference with rail? And out of the study, they confirmed that road external cost will still be, even if fully electrified, 50% higher than railways. So even in 2050, we will be much better in terms of sustainability compared to road. The next slide. On the previous point, I would like also to make a point. We are more sustainable, and I think in the debate that we have today in Europe about how to use revenues for emission trading systems, how to invest this, how to use the social climate fund, I think that will be good also if railways are, I would say, there is a possibility for railways to use, to invest such resources that are coming from the emission trading system, coming from aviation and from road. I would like to address then 2 topics. Ticketing has been raised. So we developed a roadmap already this year. All CR members have agreed about how to go ahead, and we would like by 2025 to be able to provide everywhere in Europe the possibility to buy your ticket at least 6 months or 12 months in advance. Why it is not possible today? Because we need to change a European regulation also and to adapt also our timetable. I will get back on this point. We would like to be able to exchange all the tariff among all the members and also newcomers, so to develop a system which is open to everybody, and being able to provide true tickets and being able to sell standardized selling train tickets everywhere. So every ticket vendor, every undertaking should be able to sell these tickets on their platform, so in a competition among themselves. We would like to harmonize also all the ticketing conditions, so for senior, for young people, students, so that we can organize also for them a European ticket where a senior person could be recognized everywhere, and to have fully digitalized tickets. Together with this, we will be able also to provide information along the trip when you're traveling, when we are traveling, about the condition of traveling, and in case of disruption and delays, inform passengers what to do. In order to get that, what do we need? We need, some of you have already listened to this, an antitrust clearance. So a clearance for the European Commission that all railways can cooperate to develop such a system. We will need also the acceptance of the standard by DG Move USDM, a standard that will allow us to work on that. And let's say we would like to propose it to do ourselves, anticipating any legislation. We engage our association of all our members that will be able to deliver it by 2025. Why I'm saying this legislation, for instance? Because to get to a 6 to 12 months in advance selling tickets, we need to change European legislation on the first railway package, the timetable redesign. We have been discussing already 2 years. We have a proposal to change it. It will take another year to get the proposal and 3 years just to be able to change the timetable of railways because it's fixed in legislation. I think we need a bit of flexibility in order to, I would say, anticipate what the market requires and needs. And let's say we would like that the Commission and European institution test our roadmap, examine it, and then we can work on it. The next line, please. The Commission is very soon, in the next 15 days, present their proposal to review the TEN-T network for passengers and for freight. As railways, we think this is the basic for any new services. Our ideas, first of all, let's complete the current projects, so they are needed. We need to complete them. Second point, let's also find a way to cooperation between the governing bodies of rail freight corridors and the core network corridors. We would like to avoid this duplication that has been developed in the last 10 years. We would like to see also an high-speed network that links all major cities and capitals of Europe. We have seen the target to double rail passenger high-speed traffic by 2030. With the current infrastructure, 12,000 kilometers, we might increase 25%. We need new infrastructures if we want to double this traffic. And if we want to triple it by 2050, we need others. Where do we need to build this infrastructure? Where high speed today is not developed in particular. So think about many parts of Europe where these services are not there and how to connect all these major cities. We would like also that urban nodes, cities, freight terminals are better connected with railways. Why not to accept only ports connected to railways as part of the core network? Why not to imply also that only airports connected by rail should be part of the core network? This is what we were saying when we asked for multimodality. We need to be able to connect all this. For freight, it is important we include a new standard, PC400, so trailers, trucks, and lorries can be transported by rail. And this will be a standard that for the core network should be applicable by 2040, on 160 kilometers per hour that the Commission is going probably to propose. We would like to see it as an average more than a minimum speed. So being able to adapt the current infrastructure to that. My last point is digitalization. The next slide. We need physical infrastructure and also digital infrastructure. Please, the next one. Concerning digital infrastructure, we like to ERTMS, European Rail Traffic Management System, started in 1995 to be completed at least for the core network by 2030. We need a strong acceleration. We have done only 10% in 25 years. The next 90% must be speed up very much, at least 10 times faster than what we did in the last 20 years. We like to be able also to include this, the next slide, please, to include satellite positioning, use of Galileo in railways. This will simplify our maintenance, replace balises along the lines, it will be much more modern. We like also to include and develop digital capacity management. It's called like Google Maps for railways, so that professionals can be able to see if they can run a train on a network in a very short time. Let's say also digital ecosystem for rail freight and digital automatic coupling. This is an important step. Automatic coupling, as Keir Fitch was said, was developed in the US more than 100 years ago. In Russia also more than 80 years ago. We still need to develop it in Europe. Now is a digital area, so we like to have digital and automatic coupling for the near future. I stop here. We have a small movie for the European Rail that CR we developed. I hope that we are able to present you. This was our challenge at the beginning of the year. Simon, floor to you. I hope that we can see our small movie on the future of rail.
Thank you very much indeed, Alberto, for that overview. Round of applause for Alberto, please. Thank you very much. And now, last but certainly not least, and I'm afraid, obviously, with going last in a panel like this, it's the challenge of time. Yuwei, who is the director of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe's Sustainable Transport Division. As briefly and quickly as you possibly can, without being obviously cutting too many corners, what is your perspective of the new paradigm for 2030?
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I thank the UIC for inviting United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and I congratulate the UIC for its 100th anniversary. For me, that's it's my honor to introduce the UNECE's paradigm for 2030. It is a more integrated transport system for sustainable development. And then you say that this is based on the global 2030 agenda for sustainable development goals. And then if we link all of them for the transport, the first as a SDG target 3.6 is for road transport, and then it's a 50% reduction of the deaths on the road. There's for road traffic accidents every year, there's 1.35 million people killed every year on the road. And then if we say purely rely on the road sector to reduce the fatalities is nearly an impossible mission. And now what we can say, if the road traffic can be shifted to rail and inland waterways, and then as the car users, passengers, and the cargoes all move off the road, and that can reduce overall road traffic, and then naturally the road traffic accidents can be reduced. So that's connected to the railway development. If a railway can facilitate that, and then road traffic fatalities can be reduced, and then this global crisis can be removed. And then there's SDG target 7.3 is to increase energy efficiency. And then we are all working in the transport sector. We know there's the railway and the inland waterways and the maritime are more energy efficient. And then but we cannot drop the road and the air transport. And then the way to make a whole transport more energy efficient is to combine all the modes of transport, and then to make a transport networks with more integrated. And then the SDG target 9.1 is there's a resilient infrastructure. And then this resilient infrastructure is also say integrated in the model system with a major role of railway. And then the SDG 11.2 is expanding public transport. And then the railway is famous with a big capacity. And then that means also increase the use of railway. SDG 13 is about climate change. And then that climate change need to shift more cargoes and passengers to railway, and then reduce the emissions from road and then the air transport, and then in particular from road sector. And then someone before talked about the 0.4% from the railway within transport sector, but road sector taking that as 74% in the whole transport sector. So if we want to get the transport sector to contribute to reduction of emissions, and then that's the obvious way is like to shift cargoes, passengers from road to railway. So that's what we can say, but it's also what we are working for. That's an integrated intermodal transport systems with increased role of public transport and railway transport. Next slide, please. And then in order to work towards this direction, and then you say that's a UNECE, we are providing the railway transport network in Europe and linked to Asia, and also the combined transport networks. And then that really can make it as integrated transport networks together with also inland waterway networks and also e-road as a supporting mode of transport. Next slide, please. Next, yeah, okay. And then that's, that's UNECE, the major role is to provide the legal instruments. So where it's more like a UN regulatory platform. And then in addition to the two of four infrastructure networks under the agreements, but also we provide some conventions to facilitate the cross-border movement of passengers and goods by railway. And also that's for container transport, and also harmonization of frontier controls by different authorities. And then there's also for the railway documents crossing different regions. Next slide, please. And then in addition to the legal instruments we provide to facilitate the use of railway transport and also for intermodal transport, we also provide intergovernmental platforms and then for countries to discuss and elaborate further development of legal instruments and also the measures, knowledge products. And one is the working party on rail transport, that's IC2. And another one is a working party on intermodal transport and logistics, WP24. So the two platforms facilitated as our production of knowledge product is like the AGC, that's the e-railway, and also AGTC combined transport online tool, handbook or national master plans for freight transport and logistics, and also the railway, the publication of the railway's role in the intermodality and the digitalization of the transport documents, and the publication on the logistics and the transport competitiveness. We are also working very hard for that we call CPO code. That's the full name is Code of Practice for piping of containers. And then that's also involve railway transport and intermodal connections. With that, and then we support the countries to working that towards more efficient, safe, environmentally sound transport systems with a combination and the mutual support of all the modes of transport. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for the perspective there from the United Nations Economic Committee for Europe. It won't take anybody any long time to find out that we're a little bit over time now. So I think what we need to do right now is to thank the speakers from this session, all those who were online. Thank you very much indeed for your interventions and your perspective on where we all need to go for 2030. And probably the takeaway message is the fact that this is a network, or needs to become a network and not a patchwork. Keir, thank you very much for being here and for rushing around from meeting to meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, very short pause while we reset up here on the stage into the next session. But thank you very much indeed. Opportunity then to stand up a little bit whilst our next two speakers join us here on stage. And just a quick message that online we have Bettina Wunsch-Semmler, who is the head of transport policy and the compliance officer for DB Cargo AG, who has got another appointment at 2:15. Fortunately, she's first on the agenda of this next session, but will probably have to disappear before we get to the very end. We have also on my left here on the stage, here in Paris, Diego Diaz, who is the president of SNCF International. Via a video, we will have Josef Doppelbauer, who is the executive director of the European Union Agency for Railways, also known as the ERA. And you've already met him once this morning, and here perhaps to explore a little further some of the issues related to the way over the horizon, if you like, is François Deven, our Director General here at the UIC. So what are the steps that we need to take to be able to get to this new paradigm this by 2030. I think we've already heard one or two of the perspectives, but to explore that further, I'm going to hand the floor over now to Bettina Wunsch-Semmler to give us a perspective from DB Cargo's point of view. Bettina, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, and my best greetings to Paris and to the UIC, and congratulations for the 100th anniversary. I hope you can hear me very well. So yeah, let me give you an impression of what DB Cargo is doing for the new paradigm. We have known it already for many years. Getting cargo on track is one of the biggest keys for climate change and absolutely necessary to achieve our ambitious climate goals. And we know it. Meanwhile, the window of opportunity is wide open. The awareness we have to act has also arrived in politics. One example, the upper limit of permissible CO2 emissions in the transport sector in Germany was set by the government for 2030 at 85 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So it's obvious that rail has to make a big contribution. And rail is a fast solution. We can save, as you can see on the right side of the slide, 17 million tons of CO2 by 2030 if we put significant more heavy trucks on rail. And rail is per se one of the most environmentally friendly modes of transport. Due to the low rolling resistance of steel on steel, far less energy is required on the rail than for transport by road. And in addition, most of our routes in Germany are already electrified, and part of this energy is covered by renewable energies. For the DB group, it's already approximately 60% renewable energies. And if you want to go one step further, you can do so with DB Cargo Eco Solutions, which you can see on the left of the slide. CO2-free transports are also possible. There we use for our customers 100% green electricity. And the quick solution for achieving our climate goals is to increasingly transport goods by rail. Shifting traffic to rail is the lever that we have in our own hands. Next slide, please. Let me show you some impressive figures. DB Cargo is already making a decisive contribution to achieving the climate goals. One train replaces up to 52 trucks. Already today, we get 22 million trucks off the road every year, save 7 million tons of CO2 emissions, and cause 50% lower external costs than the truck. With its broad base in 17 European countries and in China, a total of 30,000 employees and 3,600 trains per day, DB Cargo is very well positioned and will shift significantly more trucks from road to rail. But next slide, please. But we know it's not enough. We have to do more. DB Cargo aspires to be bigger, to be greener, and to be more powerful. Our aim is to become Europe's leading rail logistics provider with a rail in the heart. And this is the point, the rail in the heart. Therefore, we developed our strong cargo strategy. We have to achieve even greater customer proximity and benefit, and thus to become significantly stronger in competition. The volume of business is growing. Our customers want and have to reduce their ecological footprint, and with it, the contribution to the climate protection in the transport sector. To this end, DB Cargo is developing competencies for the organization of intra- and intermodal transport chains, reliable access to production resources, and access to the scarce capacities at important access points to the system. As a result, DB Cargo can offer more complex services than the pure carrier service, and which in turn makes rail transport more attractive for our customers, rise the willingness of customers to pay more for our services, give us the opportunity to make further investments in the indispensable digitalization of our business, and convince, hopefully, politicians on national and European level to subsidize investments in digitalization of rail freight. Next slide, please. But at the end, cargo is only one part of the climate change puzzle. The engagement of the entire rail sector is needed and realized in the Rail Freight Forward initiative already, a coalition of the major European rail freight companies supported by UIC, CER, ERFA, and VDV, and other associations. And the members of this initiative identified 5 enabling interlinked technologies which require a coordinated sector-wide rollout across the EU and are absolutely necessary to achieve the climate goal and the modal shift. And the technologies are, as you can see in the circle, the digital automatic coupling, we heard it already today, autonomous train operations, the digital platform, the digital capacity management, and last but not least, ERTMS level 3. Today, I would like to focus from the mind of DB Cargo on the main game changer, the digital automatic coupling. In order to reach our modal shift objectives, the digital automatic coupling must be deployed by 2030 by creating EU-wide standards and ensuring funding. Digital automatic coupling increases productivity by eliminating the manual coupling processes. For example, today, the DB Cargo charters have to circumnavigate the Earth 18 times a year to make freight trains ready to depart. And the digital automatic coupling provides the technical basis for the digitalization and automation of rail freight transport because it brings energy and data into freight trains. And for its implementation, a European-wide standard and a European funding scheme are needed immediately. The estimated invest volume and migration efforts for the implementation of the digital automatic coupling in Europe amount approximately 12 billion euros. So far, a joint financial effort of the sector, the EU, and the national governments is necessary. Let me sum it up. The Europe-wide deployment of these key enabling technologies will provide strong benefits to customers in terms of rail freight product quality, cost reduction, available capacity, and improved working conditions until 2030. Next slide, please. If we follow this path together, we will achieve our climate goal that is worth fighting for. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Bettina. And I think you've just found yet another little slogan, may the freight be with you. I think that's something which will all stick in our minds and something which we can use as a takeaway. Now, if I might move us on in the interests of time, more than anything else, to our next speaker, Diego Diaz, who is the president of SNCF International. Same question to you, really, Diego, is really what are the steps that we need to achieve to reach this paradigm by 2030? How does that look for SNCF?
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here and follow such fantastic speakers. Well, clearly, I think proactivity and putting yourself in question, trying new things and being innovative is key. And I think doing new things, but also pruning what we do best and by doing it better. I mean, let's remind ourselves that over train lifetime, we are far from a consumer product. A train lives 40 to 50 years. And I'm sure other speakers already spoken how we strive to reduce their cost and their life cycle cost. But I do believe we need to have a holistic approach. And for us, the place where it's embodied, it's our ESR strategy. And what you will find on the slide is the 6 pillars of our ESR strategy. I have only one slide. I really want this slide to be burned in your brain. So, thank you very much. Now, it's maybe beyond its intent, but for me personally, it provides me a very good checklist to think and reflect on what needs to be done. So, for this reason, I will, as I present today, I will follow through these 6 steps. As a base of reflection, let's remind ourselves of a few numbers. I mean, the overall transport sector is 40% of total CO2 emission in the world, 24% of all human-made CO2 emissions, and transports rely for 94% on oil. So decarbonizing passenger mobility and freight requires a mix of policies from pricing and regulation to investment. And so we need innovative services, thoughts also needed to make cleaner alternatives more accessible and affordable. I believe this is a fantastic opportunity for our companies, for railway to develop and also to attract talent. Clearly, the innovation needed, it's reminding me of, when I started as an engineer and we had Concorde and all these fantastic projects. In the end, we were not doing NFTs for football, trading cards. I mean, we were doing, but real stuff. And I think real stuff is here again with rail. The plan for SNCF is to reduce our green gas emission by 26% by 2030, and that means 1, 2, and 3, 3 being the whole chain up to our suppliers. The first step, and you mentioned it, we have to conquer the market. We have to develop the modal part of rail and other sustainable mobility. For this reason, and what's being done here, we need to promote rail, educate travelers, really remind them that although, we move 10% of people and freight, we only produce 0.3% of CO2 emission in France, at least. For this reason, you've seen apps where customers can, really reflect on what are my travel alternatives and how they impact the environment. What's my CO2 footprint as I decide of a travel mode? We need also to reduce the environmental footprint of our activities. I'm sure everyone knows, but half of the network of SNCF is electrified. Of course, the electrified part is 80% of all travelers, but still we have lines where we use diesel. And diesel is, in a way, a low-hanging fruit. And we need to get rid of diesel, and we aim to do that by 2035. We've been looking at different solutions. It really depends on the local conditions, the type of service we offer. It's mostly in the regions. And so we have been trying a few things that we are moving from testing and hopefully by 2025 in real operational product. The first one is taking a diesel train is make it a hybrid train. So not take all the diesel, but replace half of the diesel engine by batteries. That's easier to maintain. That's cost reduction. Is also more efficient operationally, less noisy. You can get back the braking energy. We have been trying as well biofuel. So if you go to Normandy, we have a train running on biofuel. Also, we have been trying, we will start soon, entirely battery-powered trains. At the moment, this is not up to par with diesel. You do 100 kilometer versus 1500 kilometers for a diesel train, but there are applications so on short distance, like a shuttle train, where this could be a proper commercial operation. And of course, hydrogen. Our objective is to have 12 new trains in commercial operation by end of 2025. So for the geeks in the room, and I think there are many, the hydrogen has a few issues. I mean, safety is one, but everyone is working on this. And one of the drawback of fuel cells is their inability to react to a sudden demand. So our train will be a mix of fuel cells and batteries. But the network is not only it's a network, it's a system. So if I go back to our battery operated train, we looked at how can we improve our infrastructure that's not electrified in a frugal way. And if you combine a partially electrified line with a battery-operated train, you can have a mode where you can finally go beyond these 100 kilometers of autonomy while combining a battery running mode with a running mode under catenary where you recharge the batteries. And we did a little business case, and for a line that would have been fully electrified, the cost would have been 150 million. But if you you equip a train with battery and partially electrify the line, you will go from there would be 30 million to electrify the line, 20 million for the train. So equivalent, you have a factor 3 of cost saving. So this is the mindset you have to have also as you implement this new solution. Money is not plentiful, so how do you eat the best? How do you optimize the system? And we're looking to have application by 2025. I can go in more ways, like our colleague from Deutsche Bahn mentioned. We, of course, are setting up contract for our electricity with renewable energy suppliers. SNCF is the biggest electricity consumer in France. And we're developing also a solar energy program with the objective of reaching 25% improvement from 2015 to 2025. One aspect that's also important, and when you look at ensuring the modal shift from road to rail, particularly in freight, I mean, industrial consumer, they don't easily forgive, and if you don't deliver the service, they will not come back. We saw what happened during strikes, but also with climate change, you will have a much more heavy climate event. So you will see our infrastructure also need to be thought to be resilient, so we're able to continue delivering service even in front of heavy rain or other events. So that's the point of adapting our activities, increasing their resilience. And as a rail operator, we're also a social actor. I mean, it's really important to ensure that it's a network, and the network reaches everywhere. So we need to ensure social cohesion. We need to promote transportation as inclusive, and not only ecological, but inclusive. So, and I think it's also important to, as we work in different regions, to collaborate with the decision maker, not only on rail, but how do you nourish the different regions where we operate? Be it by trying to bridge the digital divide that was mentioned, but also where do we source our equipment, so local suppliers. And this also comes to inside the company. So we have a different solution to involve our workforce. One easy one that everyone will relate to is the tools that help drivers improve the energy management of a train, but it's really mobilizing everyone in changing the mindset to improve our at the same time rail attractivity and its impact on reducing the CO2 emissions. And the last point, why is it here? I think it's important to to make sure all decisions I'm here as a rail professional, but I'm here also as a parent. And I think it's a great opportunity to work in an industry where we can have a real impact on what's happening. I think we need to have a discussion on where we want our world to come. And you know, if you remember the ethics course people were giving in like 30, 40 years ago, it was about a chemical plant that you know, puts things in the river. So the ethic discussion and what do we do and which decision we make is essential to support all the technical choices we will make in the future. And that's why I would like to close on this last statement. So let's make sure we make the right choice and we leverage platforms like UIC and other places to have a discussion, an inclusive discussion. Thank you very much.
Diego, thank you very much indeed, and that certainly was not death by PowerPoint. So well done. It was just the one slide. Excellent. And I like the fact you introduced the concept. You were here as a railway professional, but also as a parent. And I think that's something which we need to be a little more conscious of, I think. What I'd like to do now is we've got a bit of a message from Josef Doppelbauer, who had hoped to be with us today, but unfortunately he's been stolen by your president. So he wasn't able to come. He had a better offer, but he did find the time to do us a short video. And so if we could just roll the VT from Mr. Doppelbauer, please.
Good afternoon, and many thanks to UIC for having invited me to the UIC Symposium 2021. My apologies that due to a short notice change in my agenda, I could not participate today in person. This is why I am very pleased to send you my contribution by video, and before I will shortly present my contribution to the Roundtable 2, I would like to congratulate UIC on the first 100 years at the service of the global rail community. We are talking today about the new paradigm for rail in 2030. In my view, by 2030, the railway system should be the backbone of a multimodal transport system. Now, what needs to be done to transform rail into the backbone of multimodality? We need to reflect upon a complete system-wide change. And this system-wide change has to cover several aspects. Firstly, we have to move from a patchwork of the national railway systems to a seamless European network. Then we have to integrate rail into the European transport system as a whole, and we have to make the part of the transport system that is constituted by rail as large as possible. Ideally, that means that the first and the last mile should be reduced to zero. This could be done perhaps in direct connections of rail to seaports. The longer the first and the last mile is, the more difficult it will be to switch to rail. If we really want to make rail the backbone of multimodality, it is essential to measure each action's expected and also achieved results in terms of the additional ton kilometers on rail or passenger kilometers on rail. And those can then convert it into the corresponding CO2 reduction. Remember that rail needs 5 to 10 times less energy per passenger or ton kilometer, and rail emits 10 times less CO2. For a Europe on rail, we need a European mindset. A mindset that is based on a common European vision. And this vision has to be seamless movement of trains without any technical or operational barriers. from a customer perspective, this also means accurate and timely information and integrated ticketing. In particular, the challenge will be that we have the integration of data and information. Data sharing in the railway system, but also data sharing between the various modes of transport. The biggest problem that we currently have with rail in Europe is called national rules. National rules cause delays and cost. If we compare rail to road, for instance, on freight, it's obvious that the advantages of rail are the more significant, the longer the distance is over which freight is transported. However, the longer the distance is, the more likely it is that we have to cross a border. And at every border crossing, we lose time and we add additional cost because of the national rules we have to follow. Therefore, we need a culture change from the national mentality to European targets, and we need to create the single European railway area. I am even tempted to say the single European transport area. And in this single European transport area, we of course have to remove all the obstacles, and by that we will not only create more opportunities for revenues, we will also eliminate the risk for new entrants when buying rolling stock that cannot be reused afterwards. For the European railway system that we are going to build over the next decade, we need to make sure that we create a coherent system. And that means that we need to build the missing links, we need to eliminate the speed restrictions, the restrictions in axle load, and also we need to enable long trains, 740-meter trains. We need to connect to ports and airports, we need to create intermodal terminals, and we also need to make sure that we have end-to-end ERTMS everywhere in Europe. And last but not least, we need to harmonize the operating rules across all member states. By that, we can then successfully build a digitally integrated European railway system. So, for the transformation of the European railway system, I see the following steps. From the current state, where we have a patchwork of national systems with national rules, we have evolved with the fourth railway package now to a situation where we have a European Union Agency for Railways, where we have technical specifications for interoperability, and where we have the joint undertaking Shift to Rail for cooperative innovation. In the decade between 2020 and 2030, we will enhance technical and operational interoperability. We will further harmonize. We will have to also better coordinate the investments at the European scale. We need to create a kind of Eurocontrol for rail in order to have cross-border traffic management and traffic planning, and innovation should be done in the scope of the new Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking with its system pillar. Finally, the target state by 2030 should be that we have multimodal integration with no borders and no friction between the various modes of transport. So, in conclusion, for the successful transformation of the European railway system, we need first cooperation in order to make the evolution compatible. We need migratability and upgradability. Digitalization will play an important role, and we need a 5G network as the critical enabler. On that basis, we can do the multimodal integration and offer mobility as a service. That also means that we should strive to achieve global standardization and also standardization across modes of transport. We have to eliminate, of course, the structural problems of rail, meaning we need to get rid of the borders and we need to support more interoperability based on a stronger focus on the customer. The regulation needs to be adopted in order to better enable innovation, and we also need to increasingly address cybersecurity because of more and more digitalization in rail. We have one open question: do we have enough talent available to work with us in rail? Many thanks for your attention. I wish all of you a very interesting and successful symposium, and I wish UIC all the best for the next 100 years.
That's a challenge, the next 100 years, but I think at the moment what we're looking at is the next 20 years, or 15 or 20 years, up to the sort of the paradigm of 2030, Francois. You've already set out some of the things this morning in your intervention earlier on, but I'm sure you'd like to expand on those a little as we move as we move inexorably towards that paradigm.
Okay, well, thank you, Simon. I think I have basically 5 minutes if I want to keep the timing. Is that correct? Or?
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so I will try to do it and to not use the slides I was intended to present, because a lot has already been said. So I will basically concentrate on two ideas. First of all, it's not without reason that we are a patchwork of incompatible network. So that will be the first idea. And the second idea is that we have now a momentum that is both societal and also a change in the mindset of the rail operators that should make possible to implement what we want to become a backbone for mobility. So first and very briefly, why are we basically a patchwork of incompatible network? Basically because rail has never been an actual international thing. I always take the same example. The example is telecommunications. You perhaps know that since the end of the 19th century, there have been a global data network. It's called telegraph. It has been working since 1890, basically. And from this period, for instance, all the stock markets in the world were already interconnected by telegraph. I should say that it's not internet, but it's good enough to have what is happening in the stock market in Calcutta, in London, in real time. That means that for the telecommunication industry, the interconnection and the fact that they have to build a backbone was an absolute necessity. So that's an industry that has been thinking herself as being a backbone nationally, but also to have to build an international backbone. When we refer to rail, it's much more debatable because you can say that there will be that there have been a period where with steam it has been really efficient to have indeed some kind of backbone, because for land transport rail was dominant. But after that, rail has become really a national thing, and the international interconnection has been very poor, and the market drive for having those interconnection has been also quite poor. So that means that there is an actual reason why we are incompatible. And I think that we have to face that if we want to evolve, because we have to face that there is a mindset to be completely changed. And I think that all what, for instance, in Europe, the European Union has been doing for having a common market, for having a common technical structure, is very important to have a new mindset and to have a mindset that is driven to interconnection. And I think we don't have to be too much ashamed to have taken time to driving ourselves into this interconnected backbone, at least in Europe, because it was indeed very difficult. And now, that will be the second part of what I will say, we are touching the time where we are all on the same page. We are all on the same page that we need to interconnect. We need to have this backbone actually existing. Because if we want indeed to represent a very significant part of mobility. As Josef very well explained, we need to be extremely efficient. We need to get rid of all the problems we have in border crossing. We need to get rid about all the questions we have every time we have to buy an international ticket. We need to get rid of the poor interconnection with the public transport. But I think the good news is that the mindset have changed. And in UIC, as we are basically the association of the railways worldwide, we can see the change of mindset. I will say again what I said in the introduction. And I think for those who will see the whole seminar, you will realize that. There is a common mindset, not only in Europe, but also outside Europe, to build this kind of backbone. If I take an example outside of Europe, it's not for no reason that, for instance, in the Russian Federation, the modal share of rail is above 50%. I think it's 55 or 57. It's because there is an interconnection that are really built all over the country, and also with the neighboring countries. That used to be the former USSR, which is a bit normal. But indeed, there is this network spirit, and indeed, it's working very efficiently. And what we have to do now is to work together in the same direction. And I will speak a little bit for UIC. I think that we have this spirit. Let me take basically two examples. Josef, I've been speaking of 5G. We have been a lot speaking of 5G. 5G will be a key driver, because if we want to implement all those fancy services that will indeed make the life easy for our customer, we will need a very strong data backbone. We will also need to have a very fine positioning of our train. And well, you perhaps know that 5G is bringing a very accurate positioning embedded into the 5G system. So that means that we will know exactly with 5G where our trains are, and then we will have the opportunity to build those services. Josef, I've been also speaking about some kind of European Eurocontrol, and perhaps you don't know that, but there is the embryo of that. You know that, well, GSMR is basically working on the core network in Europe. GSMR, that's more than 150, I think, 1,000 kilometers in Europe. So GSMR is the radio part of ERTMS, but GSMR is existing without the ERTMS part. So, there is a specific question for GSMR, but it is 2G. You have to change the parameters each time you cross a border. You perhaps never ask yourself the question how it is possible. Well, basically UIC is doing it. Every time a train is crossing a border, there are two servers, one in Switzerland and one in Germany, which is in real time changing the parameters of the GSMR, meaning that you are crossing the border seamlessly. That's exactly the kind of thing we need to do, and I think that we are in some kind of new attitude where we want, as a railway undertaking and infrastructure manager, collaborate to build this level of traffic management. Two other examples, and I will finish there. DB Cargo has been speaking about RFF, Rail Freight Forward. Rail Freight Forward is about the collaboration of the whole freight sector. We have all the CEOs of the freight sectors that are convening between, well, most of time every 3 weeks for having the control of this project, and to be sure that indeed we are aligned in terms of those questions about ERTMS, about common freight digital platform. I think Keir was evoking the fact that if we have a digital platform, we need to have a common digital platform. We have a platform that will be European, and that's really the aim of RFF, that we have the same definition. And that's also the case for ticketing. Well, Alberto recalled it, but the basis of having a through ticketing and an interconnection both with aviation and public transport is to have a common data model and a common protocol. And that's what we in UIC, our member, basically are developing with OSDM, open sales and distribution model. So, and I will finish there. These are very concrete projects. We need to work on concrete things that are delivering value for our customers. And for that, what is absolutely crucial is that we are working in the same spirit, a spirit of interconnection, a spirit of, well, basically doing our homework, and at the end of the day, becoming an international backbone. And I do think that this symposium will show that it is possible. Well, 10 minutes, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Francois. And I think that concludes, in fact, the sort of the little tour around the European perspective of where this all needs to head. And we will now break for a very short break. But before we do that, just thank Bettina, who I think has probably already gone offline because she's got to go and do a presentation to her board in Berlin. But also Josef, I'm sure his people are listening. And for the messages in his video, and of course, gentlemen, to Diego and to Francois here on the stage here, for your input into this little session here. We will now start to think about moving abroad from Europe, and we move into the next session can we do it in 10 minutes time? So grab a cup of coffee. There will be a further break later on, so don't panic that this is the only break this afternoon. So very short, grab a coffee, back in here by past, and we'll get on with the next session. Thank you very much indeed.